So if I told you a story about a mystical knight who didn't know he was a knight at the beginning of the story, but found the wise old man after, his family died, who trained him in the ways of becoming a knight, gave him a magic sword, they worked with a pirate to get themselves to where they rescued the princess, and then invaded the massively improbable base of the evil wizard, destroyed it, but the evil wizard got away and actually works for a bigger evil wizard, I'd be talking about a fantasy story, right? And welcome back to the heart of the stories we tell, a series where I spend way too much time thinking about what makes a story. And today's episode is genre. And since I do a lot of theme weeks, I better hope that there is such a thing. Because there are some writers that say all genre is the spot where your books are placed in the library. So let's just start with a quick definition. A genre is a category of artistic composition, as in music or literature, characterized by similarities in form, style, or subject. So what does that mean? Well, that means that genre is the category that you put it in. I think it means that Star Wars geeks get very mad and argue over whether it's sci-fi, sci-fantasy, true fantasy, or space opera. In other words, no one's sure exactly where to draw the line with the categories. If you go back to my setting video, I talk about the fact that the same story told in two different settings could still be the same story, and I used West Side Story and Romeo and Juliet as one of my examples. I also then talked about the fact that the Shannara Chronicles from MTV was a fantasy story that was post-apocalyptic, and when we look at the two of those, we look at the fact that there is a certain amount of genre confusion, even beyond the Star Wars analogy. When I think of genre, I think of sci-fi, I think of fantasy, I think of horror, I think of young adult. And it's kind of funny because those things don't all go together. A young adult story could be a sci-fi story, a horror story could be a sci-fi story. So where category and subcategory intermix has always kind of blurred in my mind. The importance is the category is where we put them, not just in the library, but in our mind when we compare them to other things. And I guess when you get right into it, that's all that matters, is where you group it and how you can communicate that thought to someone else. I'm going to put a quote up here from Martin from Weird Tales, and in it he makes a pretty profound idea, pretty straightforward. What's the difference between a Vulcan and an elf? Both have pointy ears, both are long-lived races that seem to have some higher knowledge than humans do. At the end of the day, he calls it furniture. The difference between a romantic fiction and a genre fiction are skin deep, he says. When I think of furniture, I don't exactly think of skin deep, but pretty close. It's a setting. The real question becomes, how far can I stretch this furniture analogy? Let's take another story. Let's take one that we know very clearly is sci-fi. Let's take Back to the Future. So, if we take Marty and Doc Brown and say instead of being a scientist and a high school kid, that it's a magician and a squire, does that still work? If the magician sends the squire back in time using his magical device, and then the squire has to find the magician all those years ago to fix the magic device and send him back to where he came from, and in the process finds his parent, no, that actually still works. So let's try another one. So I guess Aliens isn't going to work, because at the end of the day, that's just a monster horror movie and could be set any time and place. What about The Matrix? The Matrix, that one really depends on technology, right? Well, no, I mean, realistically, most of the movie, it might as well be magic. In fact, then we go into Arthur C. Clarke's quote. In fact, a quote that I think is very important when talking about genre. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. But the opposite is true, too. Magic is almost completely indistinctive from advanced technology. To prove my point, let's talk about teleporters. Obviously, a magical spell that transports me from point A to point B is magic. Obviously, Star Trek is sci-fi and not magic, right? What about a magic wand that I wave around and an energy bolt comes out of that superheats and fries things? Let me set the scene for you for a different Roddenberry show. One where someone who was in our sci-fi future and got sent even farther into the future, and their version of the Federation, known as the Commonwealth, had fallen. Now, in this version of the story, there are small pockets that remember only through legend, like a post-apocalyptic story, where the kids of this location don't remember the real history, but their own made-up history. Specifically, the fact that there is a room that is locked, and only the words of the past can unlock it. Sounds pretty magical if you look at it from their point of view. The words of the past are the magical words to open the magical door. Everything is magical because you don't understand the technology. But watch how it plays out.
Here it is.
High Guard, this is the moment. One every generation's waited for and dreamed about.
I understand you need a password. The words of the past.
Exactly as you said it.
My High Guard access code generally does the trick.
Commonwealth Captain Dylan Hunt, access code Lexic Dark, 52278, Alpha 771.
Checking. Authorized.
In this story, half the characters are using the furnishing of fantasy, and half are using it of sci-fi. So what does that make it? Babylon 5 dealt with souls as much as it did technology. In fact, very little of its technology was even explained. The Vorlons and the Shadows were so far advanced they might as well be magic. Star Trek has dealt with gods and magical beings, and let's be honest, that's not even touching on the Q continuum. So where does that leave us? Does genre have a meaning or not? I don't know. I'll be honest, it's one of those things that I need to think about too, and I hope that you will too. I'd love to hear your comments down in the comments section, and maybe even point me towards other people, and we can help figure this out together. In the meantime, what I need you to do is you to like, subscribe, and share this video so that we can grow this community, and then join me back here next time as we take a walk through the heart of the stories we tell. Thanks for watching.